Hey guys, it's been a tough week, and if you question yourself, did I do a good job this week? There is a list of things that you can do, and if you completed the first thing, my congratulations, you already did a huge thing in your life. So don't forget to eat, because that's exactly what I will do after recording this video. So today we're going to talk about good writing. The banter in Dragon Age Origins is a testament to the strength of its writing. If we analyze dialogues, we can see the main techniques at work, such as subtext, tone, character, conflict, and metaphor, and humor, of course. It sounds pretty academic at this point and maybe boring, however, rules of storytelling exist because they work. And people use them not because it's easy, but because they create layered, relatable stories. Origins is a great example when it comes to characters, world building, or topics of social importance in the game. Subtext and tone are used so delicately that people, and I mean, I'm not an exception when I was younger, people let this game affect their lives. We will listen to 3 episodes from Dragon Age Origins. It will be a banter between a couple of characters that we really like. These seemingly casual exchanges are layered with meaning, offering insights into the characters' personalities, cultural values, and philosophies, while also revealing details about the world of Thedas. And in this case, it doesn't rely on direct exposition. This analysis will explore how all the techniques that I mentioned before are used in banter to create immersive, engaging, and thought-provoking interactions that deepen both character relationships and our understanding of the game's world. Honestly, almost all banter in Origins kills 2 birds with 1 stone. Sometimes even 3. Also, I want to show that even a bloody immigrant, like me, can use these writing techniques. As a non-native speaker, writing in English was a fight that I picked up knowing that I would lose over and over again because of my origin, because Slavic languages are from a completely different language family, and I still have plenty to learn. However, some battles and challenges need to take place in order to learn and continue the journey. I will give you examples from my book to showcase how subtext, tone, conflict, humor, and metaphor create another fantasy universe. Finally, let's start talking.
What was that soup you made for supper last night?
Oh, that's a traditional Ferelden lamb and pea stew. Do you like it?
Oh, so it was lamb then. It had a certain texture I don't normally associate with lamb.
They didn't make lamb and pea stew for you in Lothering?
We ate simply there. Whole grains made into biscuits or bread, and vegetables from the garden, cooked lightly. No heavy stews.
Ah, so the last lamb you had was probably cooked Orlesian style. Food shouldn't be frilly and pretentious like that. Now, here in Ferelden, we do things right. We take our ingredients, throw them in the largest pot we can find, and cook them for as long as possible until everything is a uniform grey colour. As soon as it looks completely bland and unappetizing, that's when I know it's done.
You're having me on.
Ha! You need to eat in more Ferelden inns.
It was a masterclass in subtle world building and character development at once through cultural differences, all while remaining humorous and engaging. The light-hearted conversation provides meaningful insights into characters and their backgrounds, and this is something that you always need to use to avoid a conversation or world development or world building to become something boring. And also, it will add depth to the narrative. Alistair's humor comes through his enthusiastic and somewhat self-deprecating description of Ferelden cuisine. When he talks about Ferelden food, it's clear he's not seriously criticizing it. Instead, he's embracing the rustic simplicity of his culture and finding humor in how it contrasts with more refined styles of cooking. This adds to Alistair's down-to-earth and charming personality that I really enjoyed in Dragon Age Origins. But when it comes to Leliana, so Leliana's response to the stew, her surprise at its texture, reveals a lot about her past. It highlights her cultural differences from Alistair. While she's not openly critical, her surprise subtly shows her adjustments to a new world where food and lifestyle are more varied. Showing culinary traditions as cultural markers is a perfect example of how world building can be accomplished through something as mundane as food. Food is often an overlooked aspect of world building, but here it exposes the differences between Ferelden and Leliana's past in Lothering and Orlais. The description of Ferelden's stew as a traditional dish connects it to the broader themes of the kingdom as rustic, hardworking, and resilient people who are proud of their homeland and traditions. It also implies that Ferelden is a land where practicality is valued over luxury or sophistication, and that the food is made to nourish, not to impress. The reference to Arlesian style of cooking and food also ties Leliana back to Orlais, where she spent time as a bard. And because of cultural contrast in Banter, we realize that Orlais is a land that values luxury, on the contrary, luxury, excess, and sophistication. And the reference to Arlesian cooking adds an extra layer to her backstory as well, showing how different regions of Thedas are and how differently they hold various cultural values and practices. By contrasting Orlais with Ferelden, the dialogue underlines the cultural divide between two regions, both in terms of cuisine and social customs. This conversation reveals several things about Leliana and Alistair without needing to directly explain them to us. For example, we can understand Leliana's prior experiences, while her description of Lothering's simple food gives us an insight into her recent modest lifestyle. This allows us to gradually piece together characters' histories without the need for wordy exposition. It feels more natural and organic and engaging in this way. Also, humor is used to provide exposition without feeling forced. So I use humor a lot probably to cover up my mistakes. But anyway, humor is needed in a conversation between characters to avoid it being bland and to avoid it being like a therapy book. So when Alistair says that the food is done right because it's bland and unappealing, it's a clever way to show his pride and in his culture while adding humor to the scene. And the humorous tone of this conversation, of this banter, it's playful and back and forth between Leliana and Alistair, not only to bring some fun to the conversation, but also to deepen their relationship and create a charming moment. This moment balances the typical darker themes of Dragon Age world and the people who live in it. The sun is out. Unusual for the UK. So I'll give you an example that uses food and culture to set up the world for a reader who just started to get to know Rice, the main character. This is the book that we're going to start with, and the place where she grew up. Here it is, the Solar Quarter. Not a single outlaw or slave hunter from the Nightmare Lands could desecrate its beauty, and never, remember, never will. A grey-haired guide spoke with pride, showing the main attraction to visitors who'd come from far away. Now, let's go and try some crab stew at a local tavern. What? A stew for breakfast? A foreigner asked. Believe me, it's the best food in the whole world, the old man said. Rice hid a grin, imagining what an experience this tourist would soon face. The old-timer didn't lie though. Laluedian crab stew served with buttered garlic toast was truly divine. The fishing bay on the shoreline supplied Pongtin with fresh seafood and seaweed, giving the city plenty to trade with merchant ships heading to the capital. The city was rich, tidy, and neat compared to other places in the country. Pumped pumped foreign money easily, providing the tourists with stories and memories they would share after. So here I used a combination of a dialogue and a description. I added just a small paragraph to explain to a reader how cultures clash and why foreigners and tourists don't really understand why they should eat heavy food for breakfast. It was done on purpose. Already I want my readers to understand that the place where Rise grew up and where she is now is completely different in all kinds of customs. And also I added a little paragraph with a description because the water thingy is important for this book.
So, why would the crows send you, Zevran?
Is there some reason why they should not?
Plenty of reasons. Starting with the fact that you weren't exactly the best they had, were you?
Slander and lies. For shame, Alistair.
I'm not an idiot. Well, not most of the time. You're no raw recruit, but I've seen you fight. You're no master of combat by any means.
Assuming that I intended a fair fight, that would indeed be a problem.
But the crows must have master assassins the way you describe them. Men with years and years of experience. Why not send them?
Why not indeed? It is a mystery for the ages.
Oh, I get it. You're not going to tell me.
Morrigan said you were sharp. No liar, she.
And another brilliant example. So, if we have a look at Zevran and his personality, so Zevran's replies perfectly balance wit and evasiveness. He is charming and confident, but also keeps a certain distance, suggesting that he's used to people questioning his worth and abilities. His deflection, like slander and lies, for shame, Alistair, immediately shows a sense of humor and awareness of how he is perceived. Also, it highlights his tendency to keep his cards close to his chest. Of course, as an assassin, who would love to give everything you do and think away to a stranger, because basically Alistair is a stranger to him. So Zevran is a master at navigating uncomfortable situations because of his mindset, with this lightheartedness and false innocence reflecting an assassin's skill set at manipulation. Another proof of it is the moment when he turns Alistair's question back on him. Meanwhile, Alistair's dialogue here reveals his skepticism about Zevran's true abilities and loyalty, but it also demonstrates his growth. While he's initially dismissive, his dialogue evolves from suspicion to somewhat respect through recognition of Zevran's true nature. Alistair's line, "I'm not an idiot," well, not most of the time, reveals self-awareness, and it's very important for your characters to understand their flaws, and if it's not a part of their character arc, of course. But when it comes to Alistair, he understands that he may be not the smartest person in the party, but he also has his other charming skills. So when he says, "I'm not an idiot," well, not most of the time, it blends humor and doubt that are very natural to his personality. And we see these traits throughout the game. That's why he's a consistent character, and we can expect something from him because it's natural. He's natural. We like natural characters because natural characters easily bring the world into a conversation and make it real. So through Alistair's questioning, we see the Crows as an organization, and Zevran refers to their assassins as having experience. Still, his unwillingness to explain why he was sent, along with the playful mystery that he exposes, suggests that Crows are a secretive and enigmatic group, something that we didn't really see in the Veilguard, but okay. So the Crows presented not just as mercenaries, but as a formidable covert organization with complex motives that are hinted but not fully explained in his conversation. The Crows aren't just a guild of killers. They operate on their own terms, and Zevran, by refusing to give the full answers and direct answers, reinforces that sense of mystery around his operation and around all operations in general. So we, as gamers, already understand that the Crows are very unique guild of killers. And Zevran's line, assuming that I intended a fair fight that would indeed be a problem, is also a nod to the ethics of an assassin in their organization. The emphasis on fairness is something that would seem out of place in a typical hero's dialogue, right? So it adds to the morally grey world of Thedas. It suggests that assassins, particularly those in the Crows, play by different rules and are not bound by traditional ideas of honor or some kind of codex, right? And Dragon Age world and its characters don't have conventional moral binaries. That's why we like them so much. Instead of directly explaining the history of the Crows or Zevran's role in this game or the world in general, the dialogue shows us a completely different thing. So Alistair is very intense in his will to get answers, while Zevran is very evasive, and so we are encouraged by the game to read between the lines. This is subtext. It invites us to ask questions. Why did the Crows send Zevran? Why is he not the best they have? What is his real relationship with this organization? These questions are important for the unfolding world, but remain open-ended for us to explore. Even though their banter is brief, each line contributes to character building and world building and thematic development. So we don't see any redundant lines. They're all unique. For example, when Zevran responds, "Why not? Indeed, it is a mystery for the ages," he adds an element of playful cynicism. He's very charismatic, and his refusal to elaborate draws our curiosity and hints at his deeper complexities. Crows are not just killers, and Zevran is someone who has lived a life full of stories that he doesn't really want to share easily. This banter keeps the pacing quick while still packing each moment with subtext and potential backstory. And when it comes to humorous tone, so Zevran's lightheartedness and Alistair's deadpan delivery contrast the serious topics of the game. They kind of talking about killing people, right? Zevran is playful, while Alistair is suspicious about almost everything when it comes to him. It's a dynamic that combines tension with companionship, showing how characters with different backgrounds in this world can still interact with each other in a way that feels natural and engaging. This scene showed us that Dragon Age Origins' ability to weave complex world building and thematic exploration into dialogue without resorting to forced exposition and redundant over-explanation. Contrast, I'm not going to point a finger into a particular game. This banter is a perfect example of how good writing in RPGs can unfold the world and character details such as a sense of humor or their job organically, enriching our experience while keeping us invested in the narrative. To show what I did here, and how I used occupation and silliness. As always, we're going to take the second book in the series. This is the episode where Rise, the main character, finally meets a person of whom she only heard of. Sure, Rise smiled listlessly and nodded. I knew I heard it somewhere. Rel told me about you. Really? His grin could lighten the whole world. What did he say? Something about your sense of humor, she chuckled, that I wouldn't get it if my global language remained at its current level. He's right, Rumi, Chur agreed, his eyes flickered in a brilliant gleam. If you're getting to live with me, make sure to go all the way down every time I want to treat you. Why do I need to go down? I'm not following. Rice frowned. He laughed, seeing her confusion. That was a test, Chur said smugly. Master of drinks, tall glasses, little guilty pleasures. Rice observed his hand shaking in imaginary glass with a sour expression on her face. Something in that polishing gesture felt wrong. Oh, come on, he said, his arms crossed. If a man asks you to pull on his horn, you'd ask where he left it, wouldn't you? Are we talking about a drinking horn? Chur's lips trembled before pursing into a thin, stressed line. Taking a deep breath, he smiled, granting Rice a mocking look.
What you said before, Morrigan, about the Circle of Magi being a leash, do you truly believe that?
Only a fool would think otherwise.
You would prefer a world where young mages were slain by the ignorant for their talent, taught to fear their abilities?
That is what the Circle teaches. You fear your abilities instead of reveling in them.
Believing ourselves to be superior over other men is what led to the Imperium and the Darkspawn.
Oh, cannot believe you give credence to such drivel.
Those who do not heed the lessons of history are doomed to repeat them.
Then you need look no further than the elves for an example of what occurs when you allow others to hold your leash.
Well, this dialogue is simply stunning because it uses the clash between two strong, ideologically opposed characters to explore major topics of the game and the world while gently enriching the world building. This banter looks like a typical toxic fight to those who fail to understand what social interaction truly is for society. As Morgan and Wynne argue, they address the nature of power, freedom, and control through subtext, history of the world, and personal perspectives, while avoiding heavy-handed exposition and info dumps. I mean, imagine if instead of banter in games and novels, we had pages of description and history. We will start analyzing this bit with the metaphor. The metaphor of the leash runs through a conversation, symbolizing control, oppression, and power dynamics. I mean, it's obvious. However, there is one thing that is very interesting. Morgan uses it to critique the Circle's restrictions on mages, while Wynne's lack of direct response to that reveals her unspoken acceptance of those rules as necessary. She understands what the Circle does, and she lets it control her life. Morgan's disdain for the lessons of history and Wynne's insistence on their importance reflect two opposing philosophies, one that treats history as a tool of oppression and another that sees it as a guide for avoiding mistakes. This mirrors real-world debates about how history is taught and used to shape cultural narratives. Wynne invokes the Imperium's downfall to argue that unchecked power leads to disaster. By framing the Blight as a direct result of mages' arrogance, the writers root the current conflict in a deep historical context. This reference enriches the lore, showing how past events can cast long shadows over the present and shape societal attitudes towards mages. Morrigan's hate for the Circle of Magi aligns with her broader philosophy of independence and self-empowerment. Her sharp, dismissive tone, like only a fool would think otherwise, reflects her upbringing, which instilled a distrust of authority and institutions that the world of Thedas provides. This reflects her rejection of societal norms and her broader arc as a character, one who questions tradition and authority, while Wynne reveals her belief in the necessity of structured institutions like the Circle to prevent the corruption. She embodies the perspective that power must be tempered with responsibility. The discussion about the Circle serves as a microcosm for the mage experience in Dragon Age. Morrigan's critique that the Circle teaches fear and Wynne's assurance that it prevents persecution reveals the duality of the world and its institutions. The Circle is both a sanctuary and a prison, a place of safety that imposes control. These two realities exist simultaneously in Thedas. The banter between Morrigan and Wyn encapsulates the tension central to mage identity in Thedas, the desire for freedom versus the need for protection in a world that fears magic. The dialogue gives us a significant lore and thematic content without resorting to exposition dumps. Instead, it uses the character's perspective to naturally bring up key elements of the world, like the Circle of Magi and the history of Tevinter. These elements are not explained straightforwardly and redundantly, but it implies to encourage us to engage with subtext and think critically about Thedas and its morality. So here's a juicy part, and it's extremely important. The banter doesn't resolve the debate between Wyn and Morrigan, reflecting the complexity of the issues. A world where everyone agrees with each other is delusional. I'm looking at you, Veilguard. Wyn and Morrigan present valid points, and the lack of a clear winner in this conversation leaves us to form our own opinion. It's simply beautiful because all players can hold to their truth, and this vagueness is pure gold of great writing, as it respects the player's intelligence and invites deeper reflection on the story's topics, where your moral compass is constantly tested and questioned. So this banter was a brilliant, perfect, excellent example of Origin's layered writing. It uses subtext, metaphor, history, conflict to deepen our understanding of the world, while simultaneously exploring the personal perspectives of two completely different characters at once. And the dialogue isn't just a debate. It's an exploration of how personal experiences shape worldviews. There are as many realities as people, and therefore there is no such thing as one truth. Life isn't easy, it's not simple, and Dragon Age Origins teaches us that in the most beautiful manner. Now we're coming to book 1, a little bit further than usual, so it's kind of middle of the book. And this is the episode where a main character understands that history is actually different all over the world because history is written by people. Rel leaned against the wall. Only strategy prattlers await the best moment. Right, and brave trained warriors rush into the thick of things without knowing what awaits them around the corner, Rice said, raising an eyebrow. What truly amazes me is how we won the war against the Lzon nation with such tremendous tacticians. The war? Please don't say you think they started a war because we're smooth-skinned, Rel cackled. Can't blame you for it, though. Fables are instilled in Laloed. He crept closer to the door. Arriving at the academy, I'll make you read the oldest existing historical scroll. As if the printed history is different from your academic scrolls, Rice rolled her eyes. You'd be surprised. Rel gave her a wink. History is written by people. They do it for their own benefit, wanting to control the masses by filling their heads with litter. A funny thing, talking about Dragon Age Origins brought the sun back to my corner. So that was a fun video to make. All these scenes that we just discussed and talked about, they show that effective writing often doesn't need to spell everything out. They can subtly imply a lot through what is left unsaid and how characters engage with one another. In general, good writing in RPGs as well can use trivial moments, really, like a conversation about food or occupation, to reveal the differences in a natural and engaging way. So let's hope the future games that we will play will not rely on heavy-handed explanations and redundant exposition. World building is difficult, especially when it comes to fantasy realities, but that's why good writing is so important. We want to believe the world that we're exploring. Fingers crossed, next games will be much better. So that's it for today, guys. Subscribe for more analytical content in video games. Soon I'll post a short video about RPGs I have in mind, so stay tuned and have fun, play video games, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.